There are a group of us that have been paying attention to the ways in which a legislative agenda in Congress is being used to kind of test the waters and then later lay the groundwork for pretty radical legislative and policy reforms from this government. Whether it has to do with revoking the nonprofit status of nonprofit organizations that are doing work or engaging in speech that the government disapproves of, or activists, say people on Columbia's campus who are either on green cards or student visas or later actual citizens. The Congress is being used as a testing ground by introducing legislation which in the first instance doesn't pass, but it may on the second, third, or fourth introduction, or it's a test balloon. And then the agency that's in charge of whatever that policy is ends up implementing the policy even without congressional action. We've seen this in a number of contexts. So there's one measure that was introduced on September 11th that is was worth paying attention to. It's called the Department of State Policy Provisions Act. And this law does lots of different things, but one of the things it does includes a provision that would allow for the denial of the issuance of a U.S. passport or the revocation of a U.S. passport at the discretion of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, his individual and basically unchecked discretion in cases where the person has knowingly aided, assisted, abetted, or otherwise provided material support to an organization the Secretary has designated as a foreign terrorist organization, or has been charged or convicted under the material support for terrorism statutes. Not just convicted, but charged as well. And what we've seen with the designation of well-known, well-respected human rights organizations in Palestine in the last month is the drying up of certainly any kind of funding for those organizations from the United States. But this is an extension of that policy that anybody, even a citizen, who may have said something on social media in support of those organizations or the kinds of campaigns that they're engaging in, you could lose your passport. There's an appeal provision in this measure in H.R. 5300, which is the number of the bill, that allows you to appeal, but just to the Secretary of State. And there's no standards for the appeal. There's no real meaningful review. So it's completely in the discretion of the Secretary of State. Now, when this bill was marked up in the House just the other day, this particular provision was removed because there had been such objections to it, such loud objections to it, as abridging free speech rights. But that's for now. And so it's just important to keep an eye on these measures that are kind of thrown out as a trial balloon. Let's see what kind of resistance we get to them. They'll be withdrawn, they might be reintroduced, or the Secretary of State may, by policy on his own, decide to implement that kind of measure, denying passports or revoking the passports of existing U.S. citizens because of their even tenuous affiliation with some organization that the Secretary of State has, at his own whim, declared a terrorist organization, like these human rights organizations in Palestine. Who knows what other organizations he may determine are also terrorist in nature. So the term terrorism is a plastic one. The term aiding and abetting, supporting, providing material support is a kind of plastic one. And if we've learned anything from this administration, is that they will take the most capacious, the most expansive view of these terms in advancing their agenda. So keep an eye on H.R. 5300, this language about revoking or not issuing passports to people who have aided, assisted, abetted, or otherwise provided material support to some organization that the government has decided is a terrorist organization.